Hi, in this video we'll be getting started with using Dubler in Ableton Live. So once you've downloaded and registered the Dubler app, you want to click Create New Profile to open up a blank profile. At this point you'll also want to make sure the Dubler mic is properly connected, and if it is, the logo at the top here will be lit up green. So once this is done, you want to go to Ableton Live's Preferences and enter the Link MIDI tab on the left. In the MIDI port section, make sure the track and remote are both set to on for the Dubler input port, and this will enable you to MIDI map the control dials later on. Also in the audio tab, make sure that your buffer size is set to 128 or below in order to reduce latency. If you're on Windows and using an audio driver such as ASIO for All, you want to make sure the buffer size in your driver settings matches the one in Ableton. So you can now exit the preferences. So now all the settings and Ableton are sorted, it's time to set up Dubler properly with Ableton to start making music. So if I want to control some drums or samples in Ableton, I'll first want to set up a few triggers. So you can check out our other video on how to change triggers for a more in-depth guide, but I'm just going to quickly add a few now. So now I've set up a few triggers in Dubler, I'm going to add a drum rack onto one of these MIDI channels in Ableton. So I'm just going to drag this drum rack here, and also I want to select Dubler from this MIDI from drop down menu. Below that I can also select which MIDI channel I want to receive information from. So by default channel 1 receives MIDI information from the pitch side of Dubler, and channel 10 receives MIDI information from the trigger side of Dubler. So as I'm controlling drums using the triggers, I'm going to select MIDI channel 10. Once that's selected, also want to make sure the track is armed by this button at the bottom, and I can now use these train sounds to control this chosen drum rack. If I want to control a pitched instrument, simply drag a synth or a plugin onto another MIDI channel. So in Ableton, I'm just going to drag in these keys here, and again select Dubler from the MIDI from drop down menu. Now as I'm controlling a pitched instrument, I'm going to select MIDI channel 1 for this channel. And again, make sure that the track is armed at the bottom here. Now in Dubler, I want to make sure that I'm in a key or a custom scale. So I'm going to just select a key manually here from the key in the control settings. I'm just going to put it in a C minor pentatonic. But alternatively, you can also use the auto key select feature, which will automatically put you in a key based on the melody you're singing. But make sure to check out our other video, which goes more in depth with each part of the pitch and control settings. But now that's set up, I can start singing or humming melodies to control the synth in that channel. Da, 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 da. But we can now also look out about the control dials in Ableton. So in Dubler, these 4 control dials at the top can each be mapped to any MIDI mappable parameter within Ableton. And as you can see in the effects section of the control settings, each of these dials has a CC number allocated to them, which you can change with the plus or minus. To get started, I'm just going to add an effect that I want to control with these dials. So I'm just going to add the filter onto that pitched instrument. So now I want to turn MIDI map mode on by selecting the MIDI button in the top right here. So now that's done, I want to select the function that I want to map. So for example, I'm going to select the frequency on this filter. And then to map that, in Dubler, I'm just going to simply click the map button next to the dial that I want to use. So I'm going to put this next to the R vowel. So now you can see in Ableton this has come up with CC20, which is an R vowel, and I can also, if I want, set the minimum and maximum value of that dial. So to exit this, simply select MIDI again in the top right, and this is now set up. So you'll hear now as I move from an E to an R that frequency will change on that filter. Yeah, 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 yeah. You can also map triggers in Ableton, and so to map a trigger, again, I'm going to enter MIDI map mode and select something that I want to map to a trigger. So I'm going to say select the on speaker on button here, and now I'm just going to make the train sound for that trigger into the mic. So as I did that, it appeared here, which is C1, which is that first trigger I set up. I can select that, and now when I make that train sound, you'll see this channel will go on and off. So that's how to get started using Dubler with Ableton Live, and make sure to check out our other setup guides and tutorials to go more in depth with each part on how to get the most out of Dubler.